My name is Jodee Rich. I'm the co-founder of NFT.NYC and CEO of NFT Cred. I'm here with Eden Rohrer, who was on stage at NFT.NYC 2024 last week, interviewing Hester Peirce, the SEC commissioner who joined us. We're very lucky to have Hester. She is very knowledgeable about our space. She's a believer in NFTs and a great supporter. What were the two takeaways for you, Eden, of the session that our audience is about to watch?
Yeah, hi, Jodee. It was a pleasure to interview Commissioner Peirce. She was very generous with her time and her thoughts. I think one of the key takeaways is that Commissioner Peirce absolutely recognizes the value that NFTs bring, particularly to artists, to incentivize them and reward them for their efforts.
And did we get some clarity on which NFTs may be regulated and which NFTs may not in the future?
Yeah, I think we can say that there are certain types of NFTs that should not be of concern to regulators.
Let's watch your great session with Hester.
Thanks, Jodee.
My name is Eden Rohrer. I'm an attorney in the New York office of K&L Gates, an international law firm where I specialize in securities regulatory matters, including digital assets. It is my great pleasure to interview Commissioner Hester Peirce of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Commissioner Peirce has been an outspoken critic of some of the actions taken by the SEC recently, including lack of rulemaking and guidance with respect to digital assets and to enforcement action against creators of NFTs. The first of those actions was August of 2023 against Impact Theory, the second in September 2023 against Stoner Cats. It would be an understatement to say that the NFT community is frustrated with the pace of coherent regulation for NFTs and how they fit within the securities laws. The Impact Theory and Stoner Cats enforcement cases were particularly frustrating. Your presence here today is greatly appreciated. You're seen as an ally in the community that feels under siege because of these cases. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Eden, and thanks to all of you for your patience. We had a train breakdown and then an earthquake, so who knows what comes next. But I appreciate you, everyone's flexibility. I do want to give you my disclaimer, which is that my views are my own views as a commissioner, not necessarily those of the SEC or my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. So let's start by unpacking these cases. Can you give us a brief description of them? What happened here?
Sure. So as you said, there were two pretty much back-to-back, and these had really been the first NFT cases. A lot of people had been wondering before those cases came, what the status of NFTs was. So Impact Theory was about a $30 million offering of an NFT called Founders Keys, I believe, and there were 3 different levels that you could buy, and they had images on the, digital images. These were marketed as sort of in a way that made it sound like, there were comments about this could be the next Disney, either comments coming from either the Impact Theory folks or from people buying these tokens, and there were comments around you could get in on the ground floor to enjoy the appreciation of the value and the economic value of the company. So in this instance, we brought an enforcement action, and we got a cease and desist, which is it was a settled action. So it was cease and desist. There was a penalty of $500,000, and there was disgorgement, which means that they had to give back proceeds that they had gotten. And then there was an agreement to destroy any NFTs that Impact Theory had itself, and to put out a notice saying that it had to notify people of the action. So the second one was Stoner Cats, and that one was a bit different. It was a smaller offering, about $8 million. Notable, among other reasons, that there was so much interest in this offering that I think it sold out very quickly, maybe in the first half hour or so. It did lead to a massive spike in ETH gas fees, so a lot of people noticed this offering. This one was in connection with an animated series, an animated video series. And when you bought the NFT, you'd get not only a unique NFT of a stoner cat, which you didn't get to pick. You got a randomly generated unique NFT, and then you got to watch the animated videos, which were being produced by experienced, some people involved were quite well known, and then you also got to be part of the community, the Stoner Cats community, and so in both instances, Impact Theory and Stoner Cats, there was a secondary market for these, and the secondary market kicked back royalties to, in the case of Impact Theory, to the company, in the case of Stoner Cats, to the developers of this series. So in this instance, we again brought a settled enforcement action, cease and desist order. This time, $1 million penalty, and again a requirement that all of the underlying the Stoner Cats tokens had to be destroyed. And in both instances, my colleague Mark Ueda and I wrote dissents, and really had concerns about each, but slightly different concerns.
Yeah. Now, I have to say, I never expected that I would be sitting here having a serious conversation about the securities laws with an SEC commissioner, and the phrase stoner cats would be part of our conversation, but here we are.
And when I agreed to be an SEC commissioner, I never thought I would be writing about stoner cats.
Okay, so these cases, the SEC cited the Howey test as part of their decision. The Howey test is a Supreme Court case from 1946 where the SEC sued W.J. Howey, and that case determined a test for investment contracts, which are a type of security. Now, I would describe the current iteration of the test as requiring an investment of money in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit based primarily on the managerial and entrepreneurial efforts of others. So the question is the Howey test the appropriate test for NFTs to determine if they are a security or not?
So I think it's a great question, and I think we have to start out by saying that NFTs are not NFTs are not NFTs, right? So NFTs encompass a lot of different things. You could take, and I actually think that we probably will end up in the world where a regular share of a company becomes an NFT. Now, you might say, well, that's not really a non-fungible token. That's maybe more of a fungible token. But there could be reasons that you might want it to be an NFT. And obviously, if you just change the mechanism by which you transfer these shares and you turn it into an NFT, that's still a security. But it's not a security under the Howey test. It's a security under one of the other prongs of the security definition. It's just a share of a company. So you can certainly think of instances in which NFTs would fit within one of the other categories. Like other things, you can take an NFT and you can put it in the center of an so you can put it along with an investment contract. In Howey, it was orange groves being sold along with a promise that someone else would do all the work, so you didn't have to do all the work. So you could do something similar, but I think it's not necessarily a neat fit, and I think that was one of the points that bothered me a bit in the Stoner Cats. If it really is an NFT, then it is different from a lot of the other things that we've used the Howey test for, right? A chinchilla or a whiskey cask. In those instances, you assume those things are fungible. And in the case of some NFTs, you would say, no, they're actually not fungible. I want that particular NFT. I don't want another one.
Sure, and there's so many uses, and at this conference I've been meeting so many different people with different uses for NFTs, and so when you say NFTs, NFT, they're all different use cases. But let's go back to this issue though. The Howey test focuses on profits based on the efforts of others, but creators, that could be satisfied merely if creators are continuing to create and market their work, right? A successful artist's work appreciates in value.
Yeah, and so I think this is one of the issues that has really emerged from the application of Howey in the crypto context more broadly. It's really hard to figure out what we're trying to, I think we need to take a step back and think about what we're trying to accomplish here, and then whether the securities laws are the right place, the right way to accomplish those things. And so if one of the things that Commissioner Ueda and I looked at in the Stoner Cats dissent is that you can take something like that's a collectible, right? You can take a Star Wars action figure in the early days of the Star Wars movies, or you can take a baseball card, or you can take something like a shoe that is a highly valued shoe, and that can be something that is a collectible and that rises or falls in value based either on the baseball player, based on the creator of the company that made the shoe, or the person in whose honor the shoe was made. I mean, there are a lot of things that can lead to things going up in value. So I think a little more precision around what that investment contract has to look like. Now, if you do market an NFT and you say, well, this is going to be your ticket to participating in the growth of this company, then that starts to look more like, well, maybe the Howey test is kind of the appropriate way to pull something like that into the definition of security.
Sure, you mentioned in your dissent that NFT creators don't get a free pass from the securities laws. We can think about instances where the NFT gives a share in the profits of the company, right? But so many of these NFTs don't have that. What we have is an appreciation in value. We have use of proceeds to continue to develop more works, more creations. So why do you think the SEC is singling out NFTs and not other collectibles now? Is it because they're in digital form and it's part of the SEC's efforts against the crypto industry generally?
I mean, I think this is it's a new thing, right? And there was a lot of marketing going on around NFTs, and a lot of it looked like people were just trying to make a quick buck, not sort of the other kinds of uses that we see of NFTs as tickets, or as maybe an artist trying to get some compensation for her efforts, right? And so an NFT is really a cool tool for doing that. I think it's potentially really revolutionary for artists if you can figure out a way to get a royalty stream that goes back to the artist. That is something that I think could be very very interesting. And so, but there are a lot of other people who are using these just as, let's throw a few of these things out here and see how rich we can get quickly. And that kind of thing is going to always attract the attention of the SEC. Now, again, query it's facts and circumstances whether it's the right thing. You could also take an artwork and you could fractionalize it.
Absolutely.
And then if you sold fractions of that, that could also turn into a security. So you do have to be careful.
Yeah, and also, the NFT creates a vehicle to provide royalties to the creators and to the artists, and also to track provenance, which can be very important in artwork, right? And so,
and I mean, not only in artwork, right? People are thinking of lots of ways of experimenting with NFTs to track provenance of things. And I think we need to be careful that in the application of the securities laws, we don't prevent people from doing the other interesting things they're trying to do. So, can we draw a line between financial and non-financial NFTs? Maybe that's something for us to be thinking about trying to do. But then if you look at something like Stoner Cats, a lot of people would have said, well, that doesn't look too financial to me. It looks more like a fan, sort of, it's a way of connecting with your fans and crowdfunding your project through your fans.
Sure. And in the impact theory dissent, you asked a series of questions, and it seemed that those questions were directed both at the commission and perhaps at the industry. And so I'm interested to hear what was the intention, and did this generate any discussion within the commission or just crickets? Or just a second enforcement action, which came less than 30 days later? And has the industry responded to those questions that you raised?
So with respect to the question about whether it prompted the second enforcement action, as you might guess, enforcement actions tend to take a little while to go through the pipeline. So I don't think you should read too much into the timing of enforcement actions like that. But so what motivated that series of questions was I had wanted, before these enforcement cases came out, to have the commission issue some guidance around NFTs because, whenever, again, we were seeing a lot of activity in the NFT arena, and so it seemed to me that maybe we could help people kind of think through these issues. And so that was something that I wasn't successful in getting the agency to do, but I thought when this first NFT case came out, it would get a lot of attention, and I thought it would be an opportunity for all of us to be thinking about these bigger questions, because when you look at a particular settlement, you really are judging it based on the facts and circumstances of that settlement. But I think the concern when you look at something like this, where there are royalty payments going back to the company, I'm thinking, okay, that's a company getting royalty payments, but what about that artist who's getting royalty payments? And so I wanted people to really start thinking about what are the limits of what we're doing in impact theory, and what do we think would be a good set of guidelines, and what kind of disclosures do we think are necessary for what kind of projects. So I really wanted it to be, and this is part of a bigger theme of what I try to do at the SEC, I want us to have a conversation with the public about thinking about what does good regulation look like. And I think you can only have that conversation if you say, hey, here are some of the questions I'm thinking about. They might be stupid questions, they might be good questions, but would love people's feedback. It clearly hasn't prompted the SEC to come out with guidance. I have had a couple people come in and talk to me, but I really do urge people who want to use NFTs to be thinking about these questions, and to be thinking about what good guidance might look like, and to be thinking about where rules might make sense, where the application of the securities laws might make sense. Because having something like that on the shelf and ready to go when the commission says, hey, you know what, we want to do something a little more on the regulatory side than the enforcement side, what should we do for NFTs? If we have something ready to go, it's more likely to get done, and done quickly, and done in a way that then allows those of you who are in the industry to kind of just relax and be able to focus on what you're trying to build, knowing what the guidelines are.
Yeah, and that leads to my next question. We understand you have a difficult role at the SEC, and you're trying to get things done, and sometimes from the outside to us, it feels like there's chaos at the SEC. I don't know if you would describe it that way, but we want to know how the industry can help you. But we also need to balance it. Some industry participants who have gone to the SEC to discuss their projects have been met either with no guidance, crickets, or with enforcement action. So how do we balance that? How do you provide some comfort to the industry to invite them in to talk to you?
Well, I really do urge people to come in and talk to the SEC, which I know rings hollow these days, but it can be very helpful if you want to go in as an industry group as opposed to a particular project. You might want to come in with other people. If you haven't started building your project yet and you want to get some guidance, that's a time to come in. I do, caution you that sometimes that can lead to quite a protracted set of interactions with the commission. I gave a speech earlier this week where I laid out some guidelines that people should think about when they're interacting with the SEC, and I think those are relevant here. And some of them are very basic things, but it can be difficult to know how to interact with a government regulator. And I think, one thing is you can keep following up. If you're not getting answers, you can go back in and you can say, hey, still waiting for answers. if they ask you for something, be quick in providing it. Make sure when you go in for your meeting, you've got an agenda and you've thought through what you want to get out of that meeting. If there are objections raised, then think about what you can do to analyze whether those objections are valid, and to really ask for very concrete issues under the securities laws that the staff has identified. So I think you can go and look at the rest of the pointers, but I think those kinds of things can be helpful in making the meetings as productive as possible. Getting together with a group of people to come in can be a way to do it without putting the spotlight on any particular NFT project.
And in those discussions, does the SEC make certain objections? I mean, do you have that dialogue where there are objections made?
I mean, it's a fair question, and you probably know from your interactions with the SEC that sometimes those meetings are very one-sided, and you're going in and you're talking and you're not getting a lot back. And so I think ultimately, to restore what I think would be a healthier relationship with the public, we need to start having the two-sided conversations. We may not be there yet, and I think that's partly because of the commission is sending a message to the staff that engaging on a lot of these issues is not really what the commission wants the staff to be doing, unfortunately.
Well, the optimists in the room, including myself, hope that we do get there.
We will get to a better place, because I think we're going to have to grapple with these issues in a serious way. There are a lot of uses of NFTs that, companies are moving forward and saying, I want to be able to use an NFT as a ticket, or I want to be able to build a customer, a group of loyal customers and use NFTs. That is going to move forward, so we're going to have to figure out some guidelines.
And I have to say also in the gaming world, right? There's great utility in the gaming world and opportunities. And so do you have any thoughts about the gaming world generally?
Well, I mean, I think that it's an area that we're going to learn a lot from to see how they're being used there. But I think that's going to push some of the boundaries for us, again, where we have to provide guidance. It's one thing if you're using it within one game, but when you can transfer things across different games and across different platforms, I think there potentially will be questions. And I'm always urging people think about the securities laws, because the reach is broader than you think. But so maybe this will key up some issues that we can think about as a commission.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about these cases and our discussion, one of the things that pops out is certainly marketing based on investment opportunity, right? So if we have some tripwires, maybe that's where there's a tripwire.
Well, I think you certainly saw a lot of that kind of language in the impact theory order, so you can go and look at that. But I mean, it does kind of go back to something you said earlier. So there's one thing if you're saying, well, if you buy this NFT, it'll be like you own a share in the company. If someone says something like that, that's sort of, look, I'm not giving you legal advice, but I'd say, you need to be thinking about what you're saying. But if you're an artist who's saying, hey, I'm creating this artwork, I'm selling this artwork, and I'm going to keep creating artwork, and I'm going to keep trying to build my name, and I'm going to, if I build my name right, then your artwork is going to be worth more. I mean, that's not surprising, right?
Or a gallerist might say that on the artist's behalf to people who are buying the work, right?
Which just underscores why, again, facts and circumstances, but that's why I want us to provide some guidance.
Yeah. And one last thing, you mentioned a distinction between maybe royalties going back to a company or royalties going back to a creator. Is that a distinction?
Well, I'm not, look, I want to be careful. I'm just saying when I saw that in impact theory, you're looking at it in the context of it going back to a company. I don't know that is necessarily a determinative factor in the securities analysis. But what it made me think of is, wait, what about all these artists who are trying to use NFTs to get royalties to go back to them? So do we have to think about the implications of impact theory on those things? And that's what, again, I'm a broken record, but that's why we all need to sit down together. And I mean, I really do welcome people's input. If people think there is some guidance that would make sense, I'm willing to think about it. I've put out things before as sort of to get people's comment on. I can't speak for the commission, as I said to you at the beginning, but I can get the ball rolling, and I'm happy to work with people to do that.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time. How much time do we have left?
I think we have a minute left.
Okay. So I appreciate the work that you're doing at the commission. I appreciate your taking the time to come and talk to us today. And we will take you up on your offer and come and talk about the projects.
I appreciate that, and thank you, Eden. Thank you all for your time.